Hello and welcome to this week's No Access Required. So here we are talking about physical games again. Yes, I know it's been reported left, right and centre all over the internet. However, it's a big deal because it goes to the heart of something that we've all become very comfortable with. At least certainly people of my age and other people who just enjoy ownership. And that is, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. But I wish I could say it was all just some huge Machiavellian corporate conspiracy theory. But in actual fact, it's worse. Because not only does it play into the hands of Sony and Xbox and their desires for a digital-only future, this is a question of life or death. Xbox's Asher Sharma has recently been on a massive campaign to be open and transparent and let us know without any doubt that there's a job to be done in order to return Xbox to profitability so that it can be a functioning business again and not just a corporate entity that's just bleeding out before our very eyes. And a large part of this return to profitability, because let's face it, even if the consoles, in this case Project Helix, starts to be sold at a viable price point, it's going to be massively expensive. And if they're going to sell it at basically a flat rate, so they're not making any profit but they're not losing any money, it's still going to be massively expensive. And so the money for profitability has to come from somewhere. And where is the money coming from? I hear you ask. Well, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it. You must be a very intelligent person. Well, some of you will already be nodding sagely at the screen because you know what I'm about to say. A digital-only future awaits. But wait, this digital-only medicine isn't going to be quite as bad as you at first think, because we here at Xbox are trying to do everything we can to sugarcoat that pill. And, oh, look over there. If you look closely, you'll notice that we're starting to revive old games. We're starting to give you PC ports of these old games, these incredible games that we know you used to love, and new audiences can love all over again. Please, whatever you do, don't pay any attention to the areas of our business, to our terrible mismanagement of our global business. But I'm being a little bit unfair. It's taken decades to get to this point, and the business has passed through many, many hands, and decisions were made because they felt they had to be made in order to remain viable. And the console wars, such as they are, have played their part. You'll find people like myself state openly that competition is good, especially in a free and open market. However, if that market is dominated by two huge corporate entities, then at some point we're going to find that these businesses could possibly knock each other out simultaneously. And that is effectively what's happening. Bad decision making, market conditions, and a couple of decades have conspired to bring us all here now. And all it took was one Rampocalypse to make it all come crashing down. We are leaving the era of pay to own and moving into an era of pay to play. We're buying licenses, and that model is a model that will have to change because it doesn't fit in with the standard retail expectations that customers have. But this digital-only future is so lucrative that both Sony and Xbox are willing to endure a massive amount of pain in order to make it happen. Because the truth of the matter is, the Xbox business model and the Sony business model, the model that they engineered for themselves, is coming to an end. Sony and Xbox are in the process of resetting the bar. Because if they don't do it now, their decades-long death spiral is all but assured. But let's not forget, Sony and Xbox did this to themselves. Over the last few decades, and in an effort to win the console wars, they inflicted upon themselves the financial equivalence of death by 1,000 cuts. And we all watched it happen. But the position we find ourselves currently now in the console space is untenable. People are talking sagely now about this whole situation ending at around the 2029-2030 mark. But there's a problem with that forecast also. By the time we get to 2029 or 2030, do you really think businesses are just going to magically say, yeah, let's slash those prices and make our customers happy? No, by that time, we, the customer, will have become accepting of the new bar. There will be no plans to reduce prices, regardless of what any of the big businesses say. If the markets allow it and the customers are willing to pay, then why bother? And that's why fighting for physical discs is so important now. Because if we win and Sony and Xbox have to rejig their business model in order to survive, then that's what we should be fighting for. And if in the process of this huge fight for physical media and ownership of the things that we, the customer, buys, Sony or Xbox, or both of them, die in the process, then they just weren't meant to survive. And we should wish them a fond farewell as their burning boat sails out towards the setting sun. Bye. And something which reinforces this for me is the whole question of digital game licenses and the prospective plans to make them interchangeable. So whether you've bought a digital copy, at least as I understand it, or a physical game, which now half of which has to be downloaded, it doesn't all exist on the disc anymore, the digital licenses will be transferred because the games companies are looking out for you. No, they're not. They're just contorting themselves into unreasonable shapes in order to make it look as though they're looking after the customer. The plan is the same. They're just stalling for time. Time that they don't have. And so we see these absurd sticking plaster solutions to problems that the gaming companies themselves over many decades have created. But make no mistake, licenses, transferable or otherwise, all lead in the same direction, and that is to a digital-only future. If you think for 1 second that transferable digital licenses is a good thing, think again. Because once the marketplace goes fully digital, then they've got you by the short and curlies. And trust me, they'll grab a handful and tug as hard as they need to make you comply. And so here we are, in the midst of the rampocalypse and soaring prices. And Sony and Xbox frankly don't know which way to turn, and so they're doing the only thing they can do, taking the easiest route available to them in order to ensure their future. And for them, the only question that remains is go fully cloud, fully digital, or die. You know, I'm fond of saying it, but it bears saying again. There's a salutary lesson here, and that is the nature of corporate entities, the nature of business. Because when businesses start, they start by honouring their customers, the people who make that business survive, by handing over their hard-earned cash. The business understands the equation and the relationship. But as we give money to these small businesses, they become large businesses. And eventually they become corporate entities. And that's where the trouble starts. Because they stop honouring their customers and start honouring their shareholders. And that is a different proposition entirely. I think the uncomfortable truth of this situation is quite simple. Xbox and Sony are in their current forms already dead. And the only way that they can survive is the cloud, digital-only future. And so by necessity, the games companies will eventually get everything they asked for. And if they die, well, there it is. It's not our job to save an ungrateful corporate entity. Our job as customers is to find out collectively, if possible, which direction we want to go in. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. Do like, subscribe and share. It really would help the channel. And until next time, bye bye.